Hi all, this is Kuros Kai, and today I'll be doing two base reviews. This is the Dames of Hell base on Victory server, which was actually done by me, Kuros Kai, or as my main villain character once again, Lady Dark Phoenix. Now, the main thing on this one is most of the rooms are empty. There's only a couple that actually had something in it. This was my new and final entrance. It was the last thing I did before I found out the game was shutting down, and pretty much afterwards I just in protest stop making anything. You can see I made a electrified fence cage door for quote unquote prisoners, put a bathroom over there kind of just to mess with them a little bit. And you see the shoji lamp that was basically used to help lift things. You could put a floor tile there and anything can be placed on top of the floor tile so that you could actually make the different designs on there. Most bases, pieces like this, you can kind of see the separation on them. Took lots and lots of work. That particular generator room, not so much because it's just the generator or the windows to block it. But the control room behind probably took, I'd say, about 1,200 pieces to make this. With all the stairwells, all the railings, those are actually lamps. The windows, these pieces, the actual gray tiles are desks and counters, which were the main building block for a lot of walls and floors if you didn't feel like using stone. I never took this one apart. I was probably going to redesign it using stone pieces, but I just never got around to it. But I figured a floor would look better. This main conference room was for all the big players. The one beneath with the main computer was more of a strike force sort of thing. Sad to say I was one of the only players that stayed on before the game shut down for the Dames of Hell, so in essence, I built it more for me, and it was just fun to do. As you can see, lots of empty rooms. I just never got around to finishing them up. Teleporter room would have been more like a train station. I would have had easy zones on one side, the harder zones on the other. With the harder zones, I would have had like an armory set up, a staging area where you could get briefings, basically make it look like you're going into a war zone, and had all the concepts on there. In fact, I had it built before, but I moved the room around, so I pretty much just destroyed everything on there. Like I said, a lot of fun went into this space, although you don't get to see it all. But another thing I was going to put in, you can see it on the left-hand corner of the map for it, is a rappel ball stadium. Rappel ball was like soccer, basically. You had everyone on the team be a kinetic as a secondary. It had repel, which knocked enemies around when you were wearing it. And you had a mastermind drop one of their minor pets into the field to use as the ball, and you pushed around into goals. It was a fun little game. Never really caught on too much, but it was interesting to play it. Now the second base that we have on here is the Society of Q, which was mostly done by the character Kissable, but I know Mr. Squinty had a lot to do with it, and I'm pretty sure I didn't spell Mr. correctly because I think he spelt it all out. The main thing on this particular base was libraries. Lots and lots of libraries. I mentioned before on the Wolf base that I taught Lycotis how to make the various libraries. I'm pretty sure either I or he showed Kissable how to make these, and you can see the result. Whereas I told you I did multiple tiers, making the bookshelves be the actual levels, Lyco did multiple levels and just put bookshelves on there. Both work pretty well. This one just looks a little more full, and kind of think it looks like the bookstore from hell because there's way more books in here than even a Barnes and Noble. But it's definitely cool. You can invert the actual shelves around in order to make walls and dividers and put it all over the place. This particular base was definitely themed more towards arcane, but there were a few tech things on there. Zone teleporters, as you can see once again. One of the nice things they did was originally you could only put a couple of zones on each teleporter, so that filled up pretty quickly. They allowed for up to 6 zones after a certain point, and the reason for that is hero zones had about 3 times as many as villains, so there was a lot more teleporters that had to be built, and that wasn't exactly fair to the hero bases because they had to waste more room and more resources in order to get to all of the zones. So it was a nice thing that they did. I never really had a need of it because all I needed was about 4 to get every particular zone that I wanted. This over here, once again, you can see more bookshelves, more multiple levels. This was the crafting and storage area. So you could store items in here, like your particular drops for salvage, which allowed you to build the various things. In fact, some of the crafting tables and everything else that you see over here had to be built off of particular types of salvage. The teleporters themselves did, so you needed to be able to get those from drops and missions in order to get some of the pieces, the big pieces, to build up your base. This one, as a base, as you can see from Wolf's base, is much more open. There's more floor space to walk around. This one was more set towards a raiding standpoint, even though raiding, it wasn't in existence anymore. But the reason for that was the more obstacles in the way, the harder it was to get at your opponents, and vice versa, so they made things interesting. This particular base, though, still one of the nicer looking ones. They did put a couple of rooms in there that were fun. I know that at one point they had a dance club in there, but that particular area was blocked off. Shame, though, it was actually kind of fun. You had the DJ booth and the bar at one side, and they made a stage area where people can go up to. And I said never really used, but still fun to have. Anyway, that was one of the rooms that was deleted. The main thing again is you're going to be coming up, you'll see the slow field water effect to make it look like moats. There used to be a lot more teleporters on there, once again, once they allowed more zones in one area. That took away the need to have as many. This was going to be the basic meeting area. That used to be full of chairs and a stage, but once again, a raid base doesn't have as much in terms of blocking. Now, this particular area led towards, I think at one point, one of their power generators or their control generator. So you can see going through, even though above you'd be fine, if you were an enemy, that would definitely slow you down. You have your various accuracy and damage buffs for these that basically also get rid of stealth, and ion cannons, which cause damage to basically take out and destroy anyone that were to come near them. Yeah, the wall right over there is where the control room originally was, although I believe they moved it around. So this would have been a dead end, but they put enough stuff in there to make it a kill zone. And during a base raid, not many things would have been able to make it through there, especially if you had other players ready to go. This, I was never really quite sure what the room was supposed to technically be. I mean, they usually have a theme behind it. Upcoming here was probably one of the best rooms that they did in the base. This was their bar, and lots of different pieces on there. You can see that there are some tech pieces on this. Once again, arcane pieces, I think, made better base design. Tech pieces were bigger, bulkier, definitely looked cooler, but you couldn't really mix them in a different way to design different things. Have multiple levels to sit down on, kind of like a little restaurant. Like I said, this was one of their better designed rooms on here, definitely more fun. I think Mr. Squinty was the one mostly responsible for this one. If not, you can always private message me or just tell me otherwise, and I'll put a comment in saying if I was wrong. But definitely one of the more fun rooms on there. This now is leading to the other side, and at one point this would have been just the power room, and then the control room was, like I said, on the other end. I think in this case this is just the power room itself, which they added a few other items to make it interesting. This was the arcane generator. The tech one, which you saw in my base behind the windows, was much larger, but still definitely a fun thing to have. And the idea would be is that was a targetable thing during a base raid, so if someone were to attack it, it would shut down the power. That means all of your weapons, all of your healing, everything shuts down as well. So, like I said, while not as extensively decorated as some of the other bases out there, it was decorated very well. The things that they put in made sense, and it's just another take on the style of bases. There's usually all sorts of different things that can come out from it, so I figure since I was good friends with the people that were in the Society of Q, they also deserve to have a little bit of a show here. So hope you enjoyed it. This is Kuros Kai.